John Gill's Exposition of the entire Bible, verse by verse. This is the book of Nahum, the Old Testament, brought to you by Discovering the Scriptures, being read by Dr. Peter John. Book of Nahum, Introduction to Nahum. This book is called, in the Vulgate Latin version, the Prophecy of Nahum. That's Nahum. And in the Syriac and Arabic versions, the prophecy of the prophet Nahum. And in Nahum chapter 1, verse 1, it is called the Book of the Vision of Nahum, which is very singular, and from whence we learn of what place this prophet was. But of this more will be said on that verse. His name signifies constellation. And though the subject of his prophecy chiefly relates to the destruction of the Assyrian Empire and of Nineveh, the chief city of it, yet this was a comfort to the people of the Jews, that an enemy so powerful and who was so troublesome to them, and whom they dreaded, should one day be destroyed. In what age Nahum lived is not said. The writers very much disagree about it. Some make him to be the most ancient of all the prophets, who suppose him to prophesy of the destruction of Nineveh before the reigns of Joash, king of Judah, and Jehu, king of Israel, as Hueticus, as Huetius, observes, and others bring him down as low, placing him after Ezekiel in the times of Zedekiah, Clemens of Alexandria, neither of which is likely. The Jewish chronographers generally make him to live in the times of Manasseh, and so a Barbinel, that's Abarbinel, but Josephus, with more probability, puts him in the times of Jotham, Jotham, though perhaps what the greater number of interpreters give into may be most correct, as that he lived in the times of Hezekiah and was contemporary with Isaiah, Amos, Micah, Hosea, and that this prophecy was delivered out after the 10 tribes were carried captive by the king of Assyria, which was in the 6th year of Hezekiah, and before Sennacherib invasion of Judah and the siege of Jerusalem, which was in the 14th year of his reign, and which is thought to be referred to in the first chapter of this prophecy. Mr. Wisdom, that's Whiston, places him in the year of the world AM 3278 or 726 BC, and says that he foretold the destruction of Nineveh 150 years before it came to pass. So says Josephus. How long this prophet lived and where he died and was buried is uncertain. Soto Epiphanes says he died and was buried in Begabar. Isidora says it was in Beth-Apharim, both which are to be corrected by Dortheus, that's Dorotheus, who calls the place Bethabara, as Huetis observes, and the same where John was baptizing. 1 John chapter 1, verse 28. But Benjamin of Tudela says his grave was to be seen in a place called Einsipha in the land of Chaldea, and speaks of a synagogue of this prophet in the province of Assyria. But on these things we cannot depend. On the authority of this prophecy there need be no doubt, as appears from the inscription of the book, the solemnity and majesty of the style, and its agreement with other prophets. See Nahum chapter 1 verse 15, compared with Isaiah chapter 52 verse 7, and the accomplishment of the prophecies contained in it, which respect the ruin of the Assyrian Empire, and particularly Nineveh, the metropolis of it, the cause of which were their sins and transgressions. The inhabitants thereof were guilty of, and are pointed at in it. End of the introduction to Nahum by Gill, Exposition of the entire Bible, being read by Dr. Peter John.